Redshift here, doing my part to shift perceptions out of the pink and into the red. Okay, so today I'm going to be reading some more blinds from crazydaysandnights.net. I was going to read these in the first video, but there were too many of them, and the video is already 35 minutes long, so hopefully this video will be a decent length, because I think I'll be going through fewer of them in this video than I did with the other one. But I assume this video will be probably at least 20 to 30 minutes long, but we'll see. And hopefully you like these blinds and find them interesting or indicative or revelatory in some way. Or at the very least, maybe interesting or entertaining or something, right? Okay, so the first blind says, today's blind items, the missing child. Sporadically over the last decade, I've written about several celebrity couples and several actresses on their own who adopted children during the Angelina Jolie let everyone has to adopt to look cool phase in Hollywood. There was the couple who returned their baby and another who tried to return their baby. There have been several who turned the raising of the child or children to relatives because they just could not be bothered after that initial publicity blitz they craved. The thing is, though, there was an actress back then who adopted a child, and after being everywhere with the child suddenly disappeared. Where did the child go? They adopted the child through an organization that only existed long enough to serve the celebrity craze. The child came from New Orleans. That is all that anyone remembers. Child Protective Services has never investigated because the agency never told them about it, and paperwork was scarce coming from New Orleans after Katrina, if there was any paperwork at all. There was definitely a market where babies or toddler who had parents with drug issues were straight up bought, and paperwork could be manufactured at a later date. The demand was high. An adopted baby was a status symbol, and a baby of color was even more desirable. When couples gave the babies back, they never went back to the homes or centers where they were found. They were just forwarded on to another couple or family and lost to their past. One actress who starred on a very hit network show that aired for a long time and was a police-type show adopted a toddler. The toddler had some issues because they had been born addicted to drugs. Our actress could not handle the toddler, but did make sure she got publicity for adoption. Within a year after adopting the toddler, though, he was gone. Vanished. No sightings, no relatives, no nothing. When friends asked, the toddler was at a friend's house, supposedly, or a family, or at a sitter's house, a babysitter's house. Eventually, they all stopped asking, but there was never a resolution. A filmmaker is trying to locate all these children without paperwork. This child, though, is someone that no one is discussing. Is the former child, who would now be a teen, alive? The actress pretends to not even know she adopted a child back in the day and says it was just for the cameras. No one is buying that. Where is the child? I found that quite interesting. This just goes to show how, these liberal Hollywood types, limousine liberals, these people are hypocrites. These people are selfish. They're completely concerned with image. I mean, yes, this shows female nature, but on the other hand, it also shows, how just cravenly, pathetically in search of publicity all of Hollywood is. I mean, men do super shallow stuff to get publicity in Hollywood as well. It's not just women. Right? So, but women will even go so far as to pretend to adopt a baby or actually adopt one and then just foist it off onto someone else when there's no more publicity for them because of it. It's fucking ridiculous. This is insane. Right? It shows how insane Hollywood is, and it shows how insane top 1% people are, and it shows how insane women are. And how ridiculous and hypocritical liberalism is. Right? They act like they care, but they really don't care at all. At all. It's really the conservatives who care. And I don't mean Republican conservatives. I mean real Christians, and real sound money advocates, people who really, really understand the issues and or have some kind of really strong vested interest in having a functional society or a moral society, right? These are the only people who really care. Everybody else pretends to care and doesn't really care at all. The next blind item I want to read says, blind item number 5. The casting agent is a Scientologist. So this live-action spin on a classic cartoon is going to be filled with loyal members. Okay, it doesn't say that it's a Disney movie, but considering Disney movies were all cartoons and now they're doing live-action versions of all of them, and they've done several already, and they're gonna literally do it with all of them. They did The Jungle Book, they've done, I think they did Cinderella already, they did Beauty and the Beast, and now Aladdin is coming out. So this is probably a Disney movie. And I think this is very it's what men should be doing, right? It's ridiculous for men to just accept that men cannot get along or work together. It's ridiculous. Jews get along and work together. Women get along and work, well, not get along per se, but women work together. Jews work together. Scientologists work together, as this is evidence of. Some Christians work together. So why in the world can MGTOW men not work together? There's no excuse for it. The only excuse for it is the only reason for it is lack of morality and or a defeatist attitude that says that we can't work together, so why not even try? Why even try, right? This is ridiculous. MGTOW men need to improve their morality so they can get along with each other. That's number one. And they, number two, need to stop just passively, defeatistly, pessimistically, black-pilledly accepting the fact that they can't work together. Because if they start saying, no, we can work together, then they will be able to work together. And then good things will happen. So that needed to be said. This one says, blind item number 4. The Russian spy who seemingly just gets more deeply embedded in Hollywood each day, dreaming of being a star, is being trashed once again by her mother-in-law, who calls her a serial abuser of the mother-in-law's former convict son. So I found this interesting. I wanted to comment on it by saying, how do, governments or whoever, how do they... especially when there's the government, like this Russian spy, how does the Russian government keep this woman, under their thumb, right? How do they not let her just slip away, and now she doesn't even consider herself a spy anymore, she just wants to be an actress, and she's going to be a successful actress, and Russia's not going to expose her or anything, right? Because it'd probably be bad for everybody. The American government, the Russian government, everybody, right? If she were exposed. So, how do they keep her from slipping away, right? And if they do keep in contact with her to keep her from slipping away under their control and feeding them information, then how do they do it? Because, they probably can't do it through computers, or else, it would get hacked. And you know what I mean? The U.S. government is backdoors and everything. It's the world hegemon. So how does Russia do this and not have those messages from the woman be surveilled, and then the U.S. government, kicks her out of the country or whatever for being a spy, or prosecutes her? How does that not happen? I mean, and if it's she has to meet people in person, then it's you'd think the U.S. government would know who is a sleeper agent, is a spy, who she's meeting with all the time, right? I don't know. It just seems a little bit how does the U.S. government not catch on to this? You know what I mean? It's on fucking Crazy Days and Nights. It's public information now. I mean, not who the woman is, but you see what I mean? It seems a little weird to me. And then another blind I want to read says, blind items revealed number 2. The illiterate actress is spending nearly as much on PR and magazine articles lauding her, that is praising her, than she is on attorneys to actually defend her. So this is really interesting, I thought. This shows women's priorities, that they value image more than actual structure, right? Because women are natural cheaters, so they know the principle, in that movie with Russell Crowe, Gladiator. Right, Gladiator. Remember he says, win the crowd and you win your freedom? Right, women understand that, winning the popularity of other people is a cheat, right? It's a hack. If you are able to get the support of everybody on your side, then the government is not going to prosecute you, or you'll easily be able to get one of the people in the jury to find you not guilty, or whatever, right? There's always the element of political pressure on a a DA. When a DA has a lot of political pressure on him because of a lot of public pressure to not prosecute someone, then they won't prosecute them in a lot of cases, right? So women know this kind of thing. They understand that. They understand reality in that way. So rather than spending a bunch of money on attorneys who might not actually be able to get her to not be convicted, she's going straight to the source. She's going to, affecting the public perception of her by paying for PR and magazine articles, which I find interesting. Although I think both views are valid. One person could use, get really, really good attorneys, because that's how the elites get away with their crimes. It's one of the ways. They have all the money to influence the economy and other things, so they do have more than that. But they can hire really, really good attorneys who can find these tiny little loopholes that can get the guy off, right? So, Lori, it's valid to go either way, to hire really good attorneys to get off, or to, do the PR magazine route and to get the public on your side so that, you can get an appeal because the public is tainted or whatever, and then you can say that, whatever. Or you can... it just pressures the people not to prosecute you as difficultly, or the judge to make, decisions in your favor because he doesn't want to get the public against him. You know what I mean? there's two different paths through life, you know. You can go the cheating way or the straightforward way, and both of them have weaknesses, right? And both of them have strengths. So I kind of wanted to point that out. I also wanted to read this one. It says, as I've been telling you since he got arrested, the first person who would visit this foreign-born celebrity was indeed the foreign-born former A-list syndicated actress turned celebrity all of you know. And the answer is Pamela Anderson and Julian Assange. Right, when he was in the embassy for quite a while now, Crazy Days and Nights has been saying that Pamela Anderson visits him a lot. And I don't know if it's for sexual purposes or if it's like she really loves his intellect, or maybe he's really charming. You know, I remember when Julian Assange first started getting really famous through WikiLeaks and stuff, I looked him up on the net and I found, like, I don't know what website it was on or whatever, I can't remember, but it was a bunch of like essays or articles or blogs or something like that he had written, right, about like various subjects, and I read them, and they were about miscellaneous topics, and they were way before. They were from years and years before that. And I read this years ago, many years ago, and that it was from years and years before that. And maybe it wasn't in his early 20s or anything, but he was probably pretty young at the time. Maybe he was in his early 20s. I don't know, but he was really young at the time. And I don't remember most of them or anything. I think some of them were about philosophy or history or things like this. And one of them I remember, though, was about like seduction. And I remember him saying in the article that if he'll do things like if a woman likes a certain scent, he'll like put it on his body before he meets with her, right? Like he either used coffee as an example, or he said he did this once. He said like he had if a woman likes, or maybe he used to have a fuck buddy or a woman or friend or whatever he hooked it up with sometimes, and she really liked coffee, so he would like take coffee grinds and like smear them on his skin, like his chest or his underarms or whatever, like before they met, and so he would smell like coffee, so she would be attracted to him, right? Like so. And that was, I think, either before or just after he was, like, you know, gotten all that trouble that had to send him into the embassy, right, with all the women. You know, claiming the condom broke and he didn't stop, so it was rape. You know what I mean? So this was, like, around that time. So I was like, oh, wow, yeah, he really is a ladies' man or whatever. You know, he values seduction. You know, he's like a PUA or a wannabe PUA. And being what a smart guy he is, I can see him being able to get away with being a PUA. You know, so I find it very interesting that Pamela Anderson seems to really like Julian Assange. She goes out of her way to spend time with him, having visited the embassy many times, and now still visiting him when he's out of the embassy. So I wonder what that's about, whether it's like sexual, like she's servicing him, or whether, she wants to raise her own status by associating with him, or whether she just finds him really interesting and entertaining and great company, great to spend time with, you know, because he's so intelligent and stuff. I really wonder what that's about, but I thought I'd read it. I found it interesting. Another blind item says, apparently, back in the day, this permanent A-list mostly movie actor, all of you know, made his actress wife, all of you know, have her tubes tied so she could never have any other children. It was supposed to give a special aura to the child they had together. That was the blind. Okay, so I found this quite interesting because, in a sense, it does make it special that they only have one child, right? But she doesn't need to tie her tubes to have that done, although that would probably make her less likely to leave him because, you know, any man who she'd want to be with after him would also want to probably have children with her, right? Because men want to have children. Not as much as women do, but men a lot of times do want to have children. So this means that it was probably a good way of keeping her with him, but it does, in a sense, give a special aura to the child. But on the other hand, it kind of shows that, like, how much they view, like, children as, like, an enhancement of their own ego, right? Or status symbol or something, or a legacy, whatever. They don't like view it as like, let's have a child and then take care of this child and have someone to love. You know, they don't view it that way. It's more like an ego thing or a status thing when top 1% men and women have children. It's kind of disgusting, right? Plus, it just shows that they don't, it shows that that's their attitude, because if it were about love, they would realize that love is not pie, right? Like Glenn J. Morris said, love is not pie. Think on this. In other words, like, yes, there's a limited amount of resources you can spread around and show love in that way, which is why women like Blonde in the Belly of the Beast say that love is limited. No, it's not limited. That's why Buddhism says you can have universal compassion. Just because you may not be able to do something to help someone doesn't mean you can't love them and care about them and have compassion for them and wish better things for them. You know what I mean? Because yes, resources are limited, but the love you can have in your heart for people is unlimited, right? You can love everyone, even down to all animals, right? And even all insects. You can love all living sentient beings. That is possible, and that is what Buddhism is about. Hinduism, too, I would say. So the fact that these people don't understand that, having another child does not diminish your love for your first child, or does not, whatever, it shows how stupid or psychopathic they are. Plus, yes, it does sort of give a special aura to the first child, but, who says the genetic allotment or whatever, the roll of the dice, was the best with the first child? No one's, that's not proven at all, right? Maybe this child, this special child that they only had one, maybe that kid was kind of the worst of the genes of his mother, and he got the worst genes from his father, so now he's the worst of both people. Whereas maybe if they had had 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 kids, 1 or 2 or 3 of those kids would have had the best genes from both the mother and the father. And then that kid would have been way, way better than that first child. That is entirely possible. So it's utterly ridiculous to have only one child because it makes them special. Now, if it were in the future, and this were like a world where everyone were having their kids genetically engineered, and all kids were getting the best genes from both the mother and the father, so that if they had a second or third or fourth or fifth child, the second or third or fourth or fifth child could at best only be as good as the first child, and could never be better than the first child, because they already engineered the first child to have the best of the genes of the mother and the best of the genes of the father, and none of the bad genes from either parent, right? So if you're talking in the future when you're genetically engineering people, yeah, that would be a rational thing to do, to just have one child, and it would give special order to the child, and it wouldn't be stupid, because the best they could do with future children would be have them be as good as the first child, but they'd never be able to have a child that's better than that. But since that's not the case yet, the subsequent children they could have been way better than that first child. Better genetically speaking, higher IQ, better memory, better looks, more charm, etc. Right? So for them to do that is just absolutely retarded. For them to tie her tubes so she couldn't have any other children. I mean, in a domination, controlling your woman mate guarding kind of way, it's smart to have your woman tie her tubes, but only after you've had several children, so you can at least get one of the children be really, really good genes, the best of both of you, right? The best genes from the father and the best genes from the mother, and none of the bad genes of either of them, right? You roll those dice as many times as you can so that you can have at least one child that's really, really, really good, right? Really high quality genes. So that would have been the smart thing to do. Have a bunch of kids, 5 to 10 kids, and then have the woman tie her tubes, right? Then she would never leave you, because she can't have more children with any other man, so no man will want her, right? Maybe not no man, but it'll be unlikely for her to find a man that wants her. You see what I'm saying? So this is something that I wanted to comment on as well. The next blind I wanted to read says, this former A-list rapper who spent a lot of time in prison is just not cutting it any longer as a performer. Too many years of drugs have ruined her talent. So then she falls back to her favorite way to make money, which is threatening to expose at least one permanent A-plus list rapper for what he did to her when she was way underage. He is getting tired of it. Is 2019 the year she ends up dead? And that was the blind. Okay, so in past blinds, they have mentioned actors and actresses and things like this who have ended up dead because of either running their mouth or proving a liability to some other famous, powerful person. People do end up dead. This really does happen. So, and these people are connected, so they can absolutely find someone who has a connection to a hitman or whoever, or someone who's willing to do a murder. So yeah, she really could end up dead. And especially if the guy's getting tired of it, right? And she's already milked a bunch of money out of him. And it's crazy because it says that she is using drugs, right? So she's been blowing her money on drugs. She's been ruining her talent with the drugs. And now, so it's not like she's doing her best and she's broke and she just needs some help again. So she's going to get this guy to help her out, this A-plus rapper to help her because of him having had sex with her when she was underage, way underage. It's not like she needs help. It's so it's not like he feels like he's helping her. He feels like he's throwing, the guy's being blackmailed. He feels like he's throwing his money down a rat hole, like he's just burning it. Because she's just going to snort it up her nose or whatever. And even if she doesn't, she's going to just use it to pay for her bills. And she shouldn't have to use his money to pay for her bills because she should be working, but she can't work because she has no talent left because of her using too many drugs. So he feels like he's just completely wasting his money. So yeah, he would get tired of it. And yeah, he could end up, hiring someone to kill her. And this just goes to show how women are foolish, right? Not only are they going to be foolish enough to use drugs, which are addictive, destructive, etc. Not only is she going to blackmail a top guy, but she's she's gonna, waste all her money and then blackmail him. And use drugs and then blackmail him, thus making him even more likely, like I said, to feel like he's wasting his money by giving it to her. And then, he'll be more likely to want to kill her, right? Like, she should realize that, like, if you're going to sponge off someone, you should at least be doing your best to be productive or helpful or get along with them or whatever, right? Like, you should be moral and things like this, right? If you're going to sponge off someone, you don't want to be a total asshole and make the person feel like they're just completely wasting all their efforts in helping you, right? Like, even if you're getting blackmailed, there's like a nice way to blackmail someone and a not nice way to blackmail someone. There's like a productive way to blackmail someone and an unproductive way of blackmailing someone. And this woman is doing the unproductive, destructive, unkind way of blackmailing someone, and she could very well end up dead, right? But that just shows how foolish women are, that they do crap like this, right? This one is interesting. It says, if you think you have seen hyping your own company by the celebrity CEO, you have not seen anything yet. The 90-day, 9-figure potential payday down the road for the CEO, that is the 3-month, 9-figure potential payday down the road. So, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 7 figures is millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars would be 9 figures. Yeah, and then in the explanation it says, he gets paid, Elon Musk gets paid $100 million if he can keep the market valuation of the company above $120 billion for 90 days, for 3 months. So this is more like what Rana Foroohar was talking about in her, well, it's similar. It's not the same thing, but it's kind of similar to what Rana Foroohar was talking about in her book, Makers and Takers, about financialization. It's all about keeping market valuation of the stock above a certain level for a very short period of time. 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, a year, 2 years, instead of looking forward to the future of the company and positioning the company to thrive long term. Doing things that'll be good for the company over 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, right? See, this is just more short-term thinking in terms of finance and all the rest of it. And the guy who's going to pay Elon Musk $100 million if he can keep the market valuation of his company above $120 billion for 3 months, the guy who's going to pay Elon Musk that money is Dara Khosrowshahi. So I assume Dara Khosrowshahi, God damn, that's a hard name to say. Dara Khosrowshahi. I assume this guy is, got some bets on the market and stuff. And so if Elon Musk is able to keep the market cap of the company above 120 billion for 3 months, then Dara Khosrowshahi will make way more than $100 million. So, maybe he'll make $1 billion or something, right? So this is why he's able to offer Elon Musk $100 million if he can keep the market valuation above that level, right? I don't know, options or puts or whatever, all that kind of, finance, betting and stuff in the stock market. You can do a lot of things in a lot of weird ways. And so this is what this guy is doing. And he's probably going to make a shitload of money if Elon Musk succeeds. But if he fails, I wonder how much Dara Khosrowshahi will lose. Because you can set it up in certain ways with like options and other things to where you can make it calls and puts and all the rest of it. Stuff like that. You can make it so that you can make certain bets that'll be very low risk and potentially high reward. So if you lose very little money. But if you win, you make a ton of money. Sometimes you can do things like that. So maybe this isn't even a risky bet for this guy. He's doing one of those bets to where it's low risk but high reward if it succeeds. So if he fails, no big deal. Loses a few million. If he succeeds, he makes $1 billion. That could be the case. So it doesn't even mean the guy Khosrowshahi is actually even putting much at risk. But the blind says, the 90-day, 9-figure potential payday down the road for the CEO has him trying to find any reporter who will do his bidding. Of course, the celebrity CEO throws in women and drugs, so might have a little more loyalty. Our 9-figure CEO already has bot armies in place to try and stop the negatives he knows will be rightfully coming. He has the greed bug. I assume it's talking about Elon Musk being the one with the greed bug. But I don't understand why that would be the case, because past blind items of Crazy Days and Nights have mentioned how much Elon Musk's company or companies are in trouble. Like big financial trouble, right? Like the guy's doomed. So if that's the case, then how can he say it's greed when he's just trying to survive financially, right? So I want to say that. Another blind item says, a few enterprising leaders, including a former actress of this former cult, have started an escort service using some of the still brainwashed former members. So I started in the beginning of Crazy Days and Nights and went back page by page by page, and I never saw an answer to this one, or revealed for this. So I just have to guess here, but I assume it's NXIVM, the Keith Raniere cult, run by him and Allison Mack, and I think the Claire and somebody else, Bronfman, I think it is. They're also in that cult. They're pretty high up in the cult also, very top level. And so, and the guy, Keith Raniere, you probably heard about it, got in trouble. Like, they're saying there's pedophilic aspects of this cult and stuff like that, or at least hebephilic or ephebophilic, illegal underage sex aspects of this cult. So it's probably NXIVM, and considering the women in NXIVM, most or all of them, or a lot of them at least, some of them, quite a few of them, I think, were having to sleep with Keith Raniere as part of the, as part of the training of the cult, or whatever as you might call it. Considering that, it makes perfect sense if it's NXIVM and it's moved on to escorting. Or maybe not NXIVM per se, but, some of the leaders in NXIVM have now started either turning the cult into an escort service or have taken some of the women and are using them in another way as well, and are using them as escorts, right? So I found that quite interesting. It seems like a smooth transition to me from, a cult member of NXIVM who has to sleep with the leader to being an escort, right? Because if you're sleeping with the leader, it's not like you're in a relationship with him because all the other women are doing it too. And it's not like you're in love with him because you're only having sex with him because he told you had to because you're in the cult, right? Maybe you put a bunch of pretty language around it about how, this is going to open you up and it's going to teach you to trust and blah, blah, blah. But really, it's just about the sex, you know what I mean, for him. But, if women are willing to do that, then they're basically kind of already prostitutes anyway. You know what I mean? They've got that kind of openness to sex to where it's like they're willing to have sex with people they don't love. And while you could say that's the average woman these days too, I think it does show that it's a pretty smooth transition from a cult like that to, being escorts. This blind is another one. This blind says, today's blind items, the courtesan. I'm trying to think of someone less likely to be a courtesan, but I'm having trouble bringing anyone to mind. There was the former A-list network actress from a long-running hit show about a northern state that was shocking. She also kept to very familiar circles and was seen as someone you needed in your corner or on your arm or in your bed if you wanted to succeed in politics. The one I'm talking about right now was once A-list, a celebrity. She did reality once or twice, and the results were pretty horrific. Plus, she was so horrific to other cast and crew that she was essentially barred from any sort of U.S. television landscape. She is foreign-born and became famous worldwide for someone she married rather than anything she did on her own. She has had some attempts at television in her home country and other celebrity-making endeavors, but much like here, no one wanted to work with her. Over the past several years, she has been seen in private clubs and gambling rooms on the arm of much older men who are all very wealthy. She provides a service. She can be discreet, and she made her fortune by servicing a much older man and making him feel special. She translated that into tens of millions of dollars. Right now, she is looking for the same type of payoff, but she is having trouble getting men to divorce their current spouses. They are happy with paying our celebrity a retainer of the equivalent of $100,000 per year to make herself available whenever they need her. She has about a dozen men on the payroll and does what she wants, and travels in the circles she wants, and continues to treat those she considers beneath her like crap. Oh, before I forget, there was a judge she slept with for a month to get a favorable ruling for her in an important case. Okay, so that was the blind. So, number one, I wanted to point out, it's ridiculous that people actually think that we should have a legal system with judges, because judges are just human beings. They can absolutely be, and often are, just as corrupt as lawyers, and everybody knows how corrupt lawyers are, and lawyers themselves can be just as corrupt as, politicians and drug dealers. Seriously, I think most judges are former lawyers, or are current lawyers, right? So it's fucking ridiculous to actually trust judges. Here's just an example, a judge sleeping with this slut to, this basically a prostitute, to get a favorable ruling, right? He's like, okay, sleep with me for a month and I'll give you your ruling, your favorable ruling in your case. What a corrupt judge, right? And he is not out of the ordinary. There's so many corrupt judges, right? All that you gotta do to be a judge is be really smart. And who says smart people are not corrupt? Like I say in one of my other videos, intelligence is a quality that is morally neutral. It's not It's not like the smarter you are, the more moral you're going to be. Not at all. If anything, intelligence is a corrupting thing because it's power, and power corrupts. So you can more easily manipulate people if you have a high IQ and a quick mind and quick wit and a good memory and all the rest of it. That just makes it easier for you to manipulate people, easier for you to make a lot of money, easier for you to view other people as beneath you, as just sheeple, etc. And then you become a really bad person, right? So it's ridiculous to act like a position like judge, which only requires a high IQ and a good memory, to act like that is something that automatically makes the person trustworthy at all is ridiculous. If anything, they're former lawyers or present lawyers, and so if anything, they should be not trusted at all. I mean, these judges are lawyers, and lawyers are corrupt, utterly corrupt. So it's ridiculous, right? That's ridiculous. Plus, I also want to point out how the woman, she got tens of millions of dollars by servicing this older man. He probably, she was probably like doing the thing with, what is her name? Anna Nicole Smith, with that rich guy. And then the guy probably died or something or whatever. And then she got a couple, 10 or 20 or 30 million bucks. It says tens, so it must have been multiple. It must have been at least 20 million, right? And yet, she's still doing this kind of stuff. So that means she must have blown that whole entire $20 million, must have wasted the whole thing, right? Or spent it and wasted a lot of it. Like maybe she bought a $10 million house and then wasted the other $10 million, who knows. But, now she's doing, $100,000 a year to all these people, to 12 different people. And so she's making $1.2 million a year, doing what she wants, traveling in circles and sleeping with these people and stuff. And it's like, she's blowing most of that money too. She's going to hit the wall and she's going to be broke. And who knows, she'll probably die of a drug overdose in her late 30s or early 40s or something because now she can't make any money anymore. It's like she's not thinking long term. It's ridiculous. This is how women are, but men are that way too when men, get money easily as well. It's like easy come, easy go. That saying is so, so, so true. You only appreciate what you acquire with difficulty, whether it's a girlfriend or, millions of dollars or philosophical knowledge or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. If you acquire something with difficulty, you're going to appreciate it. If you acquire it super easily, you won't appreciate it. This is why people these days, like I read recently on a Crazy Days and Nights comment section, why people, or maybe it was a blind, it said like, people, it was a comment section, someone says something like, people these days, kids and stuff, they have so much information at their fingertips on the internet, they don't appreciate information anymore. And that's so true. It's like, information used to be way, 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 way harder to get. And if you could get it, you had to, read a bunch of books at the library or whatever, and you had to spend, dozens or hundreds of hours doing all this study, right? Like I've red pilled myself over the last 3 years more than I ever did my whole entire life, even though I've always been a wisdom seeker, hardcore, right? So it's crazy to me that like how people, but this is the way it is. It's crazy to me though that people these days takes information and all the information on the internet for granted. Right? This is why they want to censor conspiracy theories on YouTube, and YouTube wants to make it so that conspiracy theories, so-called, are no longer allowed on YouTube because, people take them for granted. But eventually they do get around to, well, a lot of them do. They eventually get around to learning this stuff. But at present, all the information's there, but like no one's looking into it because, the people of the older generations who do appreciate information, they don't appreciate the internet. The people who do appreciate the internet and live on the internet, like young people, they don't appreciate the fact that, the information is there, and it wasn't there for, dozens, for all of human history, the information was not there, right? And now it's super available, so these people have only ever grown up with the internet, so they don't know what it's like to not have that easy of access to that much information, so they take it for granted, right? So this woman takes money for granted. Men do too when they're rich, when they make money easily, but women do so even more than men. They blow money and take it for granted way more than men do even though a lot of men in that situation take it for granted as well. So yeah, plus the behavior, treating people horrifically, and so she's barred from the whole U.S. television landscape, right? It's just female behavior, right? So I wanted to mention that. Then the next blind says, the soon-to-be ex-husband of the illiterate talk show host, illiterate means, I think the beginning of the name or the first letter of the names or whatever match, like the first and last name, for example, that have the same letter, like a Jim Johnson, I believe, would be an illiterate name because they both start with J, right? Jim and Johnson both start with J. So it says, the soon-to-be ex-husband of the illiterate talk show host is feeding made-up stories to several media outlets, including one particular YouTuber that he is getting back together with his soon-to-be ex-wife. So this is a story that he's passing around, that he's going to be getting back together with his ex-wife. I don't know what fantasy world he's living in, but if your ex travels around with a security guard everywhere she goes because she's afraid of getting hurt by you, ... yeah, she really wants you back. Just look at her demeanor these last few weeks on her show. She's living her best life now that she's single lady. She should be more concerned about he should be more concerned about the feds investigating him and his mistress for money laundering and using his now defunct charity to give gifts to the mistress. So that was why I wanted to read this particular blind, because it shows that, he's been laundering money and he's been using his charity to give gifts to his mistress. So he's been, laundering money, it sounds like, from his charity. So this is how tons and tons of charities are. Either the charity is like a vanity charity by a celebrity, where like the charity is laundering money and using it to give gifts to, whoever to advance his career, or to buy stuff for himself, or buy stuff for his mistress, or buy sex, from random escorts or whatever, right? Like this is what they waste the money that they embezzle from the charity or whatever on, or the charity is like a huge charity and it's really, really corrupt, but not in that obvious way. It's corrupt in a behind-the-scenes way where it's in bed with CIA and it's helping traffic drug money or launder drug money and stuff like this. And this charity is huge, and because it's working with CIA, it's never going to get busted or anything. But it is still super corrupt, and you should never give your money to it, right? So I just want to point out how corrupt charities are by pointing out this blind item, and how you should never give money to charities because of that. Blind item number 7. That domestic violence incident from a couple years ago is something this A-list singer and her celebrity husband still cannot overcome. The marriage is more rocky than ever. Okay, so this is a female nature one. I found this blind to be very interesting and instructive, indicative of female nature, because, okay, so why would if it was just one incident a couple years ago, why would they still be having marriage problems because of that incident, right? It says, her and her celebrity husband still can't overcome this domestic violence incident. That makes no sense unless you think of it in terms of female submission and women's desire to submit, and them wanting a masculine man, and them not being capable, genetically incapable of being egalitarian. They just aren't. They want to either dominate men, in which case they don't appreciate the man and they want to dump him for a guy who's actually superior to her, or he is superior and then they want to submit, right? They don't want to be equal partners with a man. They can't do it. It's just not in their nature. It's something that is totally abnormal and strange and freakish and perverted to them, to be with a man who is equal to them, right? They want to be able to look up to their man. They want him to make more money, have a higher IQ, more charm, maybe not better looks, but they want him to be good looking too, like almost as good looking as her, or as good looking, because it makes her insecure about her looks if her husband or boyfriend or whoever is better looking than she is. But yeah, so they're having problems because of this domestic violence incident, because basically they took the relationship to the next level when the violence occurred. Her husband, when he beat her, he took the relationship to the next level, saying, I am more masculine than you think. I am gonna put you in your place, etc., right? But then after that, it sounds like because it's a domestic violence incident, I assume she called the cops or whatever. Maybe he didn't do any jail time. Maybe she refused to testify against him. But, there was this incident, and since it's publicly known, it sounds like, I assume it was something that, the cops got involved in and whatnot. So after that, he was like, okay, the cops came and stuff. I can't, keep doing this. I can't keep beating her because, the cops will keep being called by her, and then she'll send me to prison. They'll ruin my career, my life, whatever, right? So he beats her, in this, maybe not a fit of rage. Maybe she really deserved it. She was a real bitch, right? And she deserved to be smacked around a little bit, right? And so he's totally right to do it. Maybe. Let's just say he was. He after she calls the cops, he's like, okay, I can't keep doing this. I'd like to. I probably should when she acts this badly. It'll make her behave better, but I can't because, the cops will be called every time and I'll end up going to prison, right? So he stops beating her. So now because he took the relationship to the next level by beating her that time, she now expects him to be more masculine. She wants him to put her in her place. She wants him to beat her when she acts that badly. But she isn't going to submit to him voluntarily in that way, because then that doesn't prove his dominance. If she's submitting, it's not him being dominant and forcing her to be submissive, and then therefore he is not actually more dominant. She wants to be a bitch or whatever, and then She wants him to put her in her place against her will. And then therefore that proves that he is more masculine. And then that makes her feel feminine and happy and submissive, and then she'll behave better. Right? But only when he forces her to. So she's acting badly, and that's why their marriage is rocky. She's acting badly because she's testing him, because she wants him to beat her and put her back in her place. Like she, you know, like she was, like he gave her the indication that he was going to start doing from now on, right? Like he said, you know, like she probably thought he was like a 7 in masculinity, but then when he beat her, she thought of him as like a 10, right? Or her instincts, her deep genetic instincts thought of her as like a 10, right? But she still had to prove it to herself that he's that masculine, right? So then when he didn't continue beating her after that, she thought, what the hell? I thought he was like a 10 out of 10 in masculinity, but now he's acting like a 7 again, or a 6. You know, in 6 out of 10 in masculinity. This is crazy. So then she keeps acting like a crazy bitch, trying to goad him into, you know, upping his masculinity and beating her and putting her in her place, right? But because of legal reasons, he can't do that. So the marriage is just going to continue being rocky, right? The only leverage he has is walking away. But because they're married, he can't, because she'll divorce rape him. So now he's stuck in this rocky marriage. Like the best and probably only thing he could actually do would be to get her to sign a contract allowing him to spank her when she misbehaves. And then when she misbehaves, he drags her into the bedroom by force, you know, against her will, even though she's fighting him the whole way. And then he cuffs her to the headboard against her will, and then he spanks the hell out of her with a fraternity paddle, you know, hitting her like 300 or 400 times, you know, till she's crying and crying and crying and crying and crying. You know what I mean? Only something like that would maybe be able to fix his marriage and fix this whole problem with her shit-testing him because she wants him to be more masculine because she knows he can be, but yet he can't divorce her and he can't beat her because she'll call the cops, right? Like spanking her like that is the only solution for a guy like this. Otherwise, he's screwed. You know what I mean? But I thought this blind really indicated female nature, and so I wanted to explain what was going on there and what that blind indicated. So, that was all the blind items for this time. This has been Redshift. Hit the thumbs up button if you like this video. Hit the thumbs down button if you hated it. Peace trucks for plutocrats.